Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Enjoy English with Nora and Liam. Have you ever known exactly what you wanted to say? You had the perfect answer in your mind, everything sounded clear. But then, someone looked at you and asked, "So, what do you think?" And suddenly, your mind went completely blank. The words disappeared. Your heart started beating faster, and somehow, the sentence that sounded perfect just a second ago came out completely wrong. If you've ever experienced that, don't worry. You're definitely not alone.
Oh, I know that feeling better than anyone. Actually, something really embarrassing happened to me a few days ago. And honestly, every time I remember it, I still laugh and cringe at the same time.
Now you have to tell us what happened.
Well, I was in an online meeting with a new client. Everything was going smoothly. Everyone introduced themselves. People were smiling. The conversation was relaxed. Then the manager looked at me and asked, "Liam, could you tell us one of your biggest strengths?" Simple question, very simple. I had practiced my answer before the meeting. I knew exactly what I wanted to say. I even repeated it to myself several times. So I smiled, took a deep breath, and started speaking.
So far, everything sounds perfect.
That's what I thought too, but the moment everyone started looking at me, my brain completely froze. I wanted to say, "I'm a good problem solver." Instead, I confidently said, "I'm a good problem maker."
No way. You actually said that?
Unfortunately, yes. And the worst part, I didn't even realize my mistake immediately. For about 3 seconds, I was actually proud of my answer. Then I noticed everyone's faces. Some people were trying not to laugh. One person looked completely confused. And then the whole meeting burst into laughter. Even I started laughing. But inside my head, I was thinking, please, can someone turn off my internet?
That's actually a funny story. But you know what? Stories like this happen every single day. Not only to English learners, even native speakers sometimes say the wrong word.
Exactly. And that's the interesting part. The problem wasn't my English. I knew the vocabulary, I knew the grammar, I knew the correct sentence. But the pressure changed everything.
I think that's something many English learners don't realize. Sometimes the biggest problem isn't English, it's nervousness, it's overthinking, it's the fear of making one small mistake.
Yes, and once that fear appears, everything starts happening too quickly. You begin speaking faster, you stop thinking clearly, you choose difficult words instead of simple ones, and after one tiny mistake, you start apologizing again and again and again.
Exactly. Then the conversation becomes much more difficult than it needs to be. Many learners tell themselves, "My English isn't good enough." But very often, that's not true at all. The real challenge isn't English. The real challenge is confidence.
I used to believe confident people never made mistakes. Now I know something completely different. Confident people make mistakes too. The difference is they don't panic. They simply correct themselves, smile, and continue speaking.
I love that idea because confidence doesn't mean speaking perfect English. Confidence means staying calm even when your English isn't perfect. And the best part is, confidence isn't something you're born with. It's something you can practice, one conversation at a time.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Enjoy English with Nora and Liam, your favorite place to improve your English through real conversations, simple explanations, and practical speaking tips that you can use in everyday life.
We're so happy you're joining us today because today's topic is something almost every English learner struggles with. How can you communicate with confidence even when you feel nervous?
We're not talking about fake confidence. We're not talking about speaking louder. We're not talking about speaking faster. And we're definitely not talking about pretending to know everything.
Today, we're talking about real confidence, the kind that helps you stay calm, express your ideas clearly, and continue the conversation even after making a mistake.
Today, we're talking about real confidence, the kind that helps you stay calm, express your ideas clearly, and continue the conversation even after making a mistake.
Throughout today's episode, we'll share simple techniques, real life examples, useful expressions, and practical speaking habits that can make your English sound more natural and much more confident.
Later, we'll also learn some powerful vocabulary in our Word Explorer section, and then we'll visit Say It Better, where we'll transform common English learner sentences into smoother, more natural, and more confident English.
So, whether you're preparing for a job interview, speaking English at work, talking with classmates, traveling abroad, or simply trying to become a more confident English speaker, this episode is for you.
So get comfortable, take a nice deep breath, and let's learn how to communicate with confidence together. Let's begin.
Liam, can I ask you a question? Why do so many English learners believe that confident people always speak fast?
That's a really interesting question because I used to believe exactly the same thing. Whenever I watched interviews, podcasts, or business presentations, everyone sounded so smooth, so fluent, so confident. And in my mind, I thought, if I want to sound fluent, I have to speak faster.
I think that's a very common belief. Many learners think fast English means good English.
Exactly. So I started speaking as fast as I could. I didn't pause, I didn't breathe, I didn't even give myself time to think. I just kept talking, hoping I sounded fluent.
And did it work?
Not at all. Instead of sounding confident, I sounded nervous. Sometimes I skipped important words, sometimes I mixed two sentences together, sometimes I forgot what I wanted to say halfway through, and by the end, even I was confused.
That happens more often than people realize. Speaking faster doesn't automatically make you sound more fluent. Sometimes it simply makes you more difficult to understand.
That's true. One day, one of my colleagues said something I'll never forget. He said, Liam, when you speak slowly, your ideas are really clear. But when you rush, I have to work much harder to understand you. That sentence completely changed my thinking.
That's wonderful advice because communication isn't a race. The goal isn't to finish your sentence quickly. The goal is to make your listener understand your message.
Exactly. After that, I stopped trying to sound fast. Instead, I started focusing on speaking clearly, and something surprising happened. People understood me better, I made fewer mistakes, and I actually felt more relaxed.
That's because confidence isn't about speed, it's about control. When you're calm, your brain has more time to choose the right words. And when your words are clear, your listener feels comfortable too.
I love that. Confidence is control, not speed. I think I'll remember that for a long time.
Here's another thing many learners worry about: pauses. The moment they stop speaking for 1 second, they think, oh no, everyone is judging me.
That used to happen to me all the time. If I paused even for 2 seconds, I immediately thought, they think my English is bad. So I filled every silent moment with, you know, even when I had nothing to say.
But here's the truth: a short pause isn't a weakness, it's often a sign of confidence. Think about great speakers. They pause all the time, not because they forgot their words, but because they're choosing their words carefully.
That's true. I recently watched an interview with a famous entrepreneur. He answered every question very slowly. Sometimes he paused for 2 or 3 seconds before speaking. At first, I thought he didn't know the answer. Then I realized he was simply thinking.
Exactly. There's a huge difference between freezing and pausing. Freezing happens because of fear. Pausing happens because of purpose. One shows panic, the other shows confidence.
I never thought about it like that. So if someone asks me a difficult question, it's perfectly okay to take a moment before answering.
Absolutely. In fact, that small pause can make you give a much better answer. Instead of saying the first thing that comes into your mind, you organize your thoughts first, and your answer becomes much clearer.
I've actually started doing that recently. Whenever someone asks me something difficult, I take one deep breath, smile, and then answer. It's amazing how much calmer I feel.
That's a wonderful habit. A deep breath slows your mind. And when your mind slows down, your English becomes much more natural.
I wish someone had taught me that years ago. I spent so much time trying to speak like other people that I forgot to speak like myself.
That's such an important lesson. Your goal isn't to copy someone else's speaking style. Your goal is to communicate your own ideas clearly, naturally, and confidently.
Can I ask you something?
Of course.
Can I ask you something? What if I need more time to think? Should I stay silent or should I say something?
Great question. Instead of feeling uncomfortable, use a simple thinking phrase. For example, that's a good question, or let me think for a second. These small expressions give your brain time to think without making the conversation feel awkward.
I like that. Instead of panicking, I already have a sentence ready. That makes me feel much more confident.
Exactly. Sometimes confidence isn't about knowing more English, it's simply about knowing what to say when your brain needs a few extra seconds.
That's a really helpful idea because those few seconds can make a huge difference.
Absolutely. So remember today's lesson. Don't chase speed, chase clarity. Don't be afraid of pauses, use them wisely, because people don't remember how fast you spoke, they remember how clearly you communicated.
I love that. And in the next part, we're going to talk about something every English learner experiences. What should you do when you suddenly forget an English word in the middle of a conversation? Should you stop speaking, or is there a much better way to keep the conversation going? Let's find out.
Liam, can I ask you something? Imagine you're having a really good conversation in English. Everything feels natural. You're answering questions, you're smiling, you're enjoying the conversation. And then, right in the middle of your sentence, you forget one important English word. What usually happens next?
Honestly, everything changes. The moment I can't remember that one word, I stop talking. Then I start thinking, come on, you know this. Why can't you remember it? The more I try to find the word, the more impossible it becomes.
Exactly. And that's something almost every English learner experiences. But here's the interesting part. Forgetting one word isn't what ruins the conversation. Panicking because you forgot the word, that's what causes the real problem.
You're absolutely right. Sometimes I spend 10 seconds trying to remember one perfect word when I could have used those same 10 seconds to explain my idea another way.
Exactly. Communication is about sharing ideas, not showing a perfect vocabulary. Let me give you an example. Imagine you forget the word passport. Should you stop speaking? Of course not. You could simply say, it's the document you need before you travel to another country. The listener will understand immediately.
That's actually much easier. Instead of searching for one perfect word, I can simply describe it.
Exactly. And that's a skill called paraphrasing. It simply means explaining the same idea using different words. Confident speakers use this skill all the time.
Really? Even native English speakers?
Absolutely. Nobody remembers every word every single day. Sometimes they forget. Sometimes they choose a simpler word. Sometimes they explain instead. And nobody even notices because the conversation never stops.
I think many learners believe native English speakers always know exactly what to say.
That's one of the biggest myths. Even native English speakers pause. Even native English speakers search for words. The difference is they don't panic. They simply keep talking.
I wish I had known that earlier. Whenever I forgot a word, I immediately thought, my English is terrible.
That's another habit we should change. When learners forget one word, many of them immediately apologize. They say, sorry, my English is very bad, or I'm not good at English. But think about what happens next. The attention moves away from your idea and toward your mistake.
That's true. Instead of listening to my message, people start noticing that I'm nervous.
Exactly. A much better response would be, let me explain it another way, or I'm looking for the right word. Those sentences sound calm, natural, and confident.
I really like "let me explain it another way." It keeps the conversation moving, and it doesn't make me sound embarrassed.
Exactly. Now let me ask you another question. If one of your friends accidentally used the wrong English word, would you laugh at them?
No, I'd probably understand what they meant, or maybe I'd help them find the right word.
Exactly. That's how most conversations work. People are usually listening to your ideas, not waiting for your mistakes. Sometimes we're much harder on ourselves than anyone else is.
That's so true. I think I'm my own biggest critic. One tiny mistake happens, and suddenly I forget all the English I actually know.
Exactly. That's why confidence is so important. Confidence reminds you one mistake doesn't change everything. You still know English, you still have ideas, you can still communicate.
Can I ask you something?
Of course.
Should learners always try to use difficult vocabulary? Sometimes I feel like simple English sounds childish.
Not at all. Actually, simple English is often the best English. Think about great teachers. Think about great speakers. Most of them don't use complicated words. They use clear words, simple words, words everyone understands. That's what makes them effective.
That reminds me of something. A few years ago, I tried to impress people with difficult vocabulary. Instead, I spent more time thinking about words than actually communicating.
Exactly. Here's a simple comparison. Instead of saying, I would like to facilitate an effective discussion regarding this matter, you can simply say, I'd like to talk about this. Both sentences communicate the same idea, but one feels much more natural.
And honestly, I'd feel much more confident saying the second one.
Exactly. And that's because confidence comes from clarity, not complexity. The goal isn't to sound like a dictionary, the goal is to connect with people.
I really like that. The goal is to connect, not to impress.
Exactly. And here's one final thought before we continue. Every conversation is practice. Every mistake is experience. Every new word makes you a little stronger. So don't be afraid of forgetting a word. Be proud that you're having the conversation in the first place. Because every confident speaker you admire today was once a nervous beginner, too.
I couldn't agree more. And in the next part, we're going to share some simple English phrases that can instantly make you sound calmer, more professional, and much more confident in everyday conversations.
Liam, we've talked about speaking slowly. We've talked about staying calm. We've talked about what to do when you forget a word. But I think there's another situation that makes many English learners nervous.
Let me guess. Someone says something and you don't understand it.
Exactly. What do you usually do in that situation?
Honestly, sometimes I just smile. I nod my head and secretly hope the conversation moves to another topic.
I think we've all done that at least once. But let's be honest, that's a very risky strategy.
It really is, because sometimes people ask me a question and I smile even though I didn't understand anything. Then they wait for my answer and I'm completely lost.
Exactly. Many learners believe that asking someone to repeat themselves makes them sound weak, but that's not true at all. In fact, confident speakers ask for clarification all the time.
Really? Even native English speakers?
Absolutely. Think about it. Have you ever heard someone say, Sorry, could you say that again? Or, I didn't catch the last part. Or, could you explain that one more time? Those are completely natural expressions. People use them every day.
Now that you mention it, I've heard those phrases many times. I just never realized how common they are.
Exactly. There's nothing embarrassing about making sure you understand correctly. Actually, it shows that you're paying attention.
That makes sense, because pretending to understand can create much bigger problems later.
Exactly. Imagine your manager says, Can you finish this report by Thursday? But you only hear Thursday. So you smile and say, Sure. Then you go home without knowing what you're actually supposed to do.
That sounds like a disaster waiting to happen.
Exactly. A much better response would be, Sorry, could you repeat that? Or, just to make sure I understood, you'd like me to finish the report by Thursday. Now everyone is clear.
I really like "just to make sure I understood." It sounds professional.
It does. And it also shows that you're listening carefully. People appreciate that.
Can I ask another question?
Of course.
What if I make a mistake while speaking? Should I apologize?
That's another common situation. Let's imagine you accidentally say the wrong word. Should you stop the whole conversation? No. Should you apologize 5 times? Definitely not. A simple correction is enough.
So instead of saying, I'm so sorry, my English is terrible, I can simply say, sorry, I meant.
Exactly. Or you can say, let me say that again. Or, that's not the word I wanted. Then continue speaking. Don't let one small mistake become the center of the conversation.
I like that because the goal isn't to be perfect. The goal is to keep communicating.
Exactly. Here's another habit confident speakers have. They don't rush to answer every question. Sometimes they use a thinking phrase. For example, that's an interesting question, or let me think about that for a second. Those small expressions give your brain time to organize your answer.
And they sound much better than saying, every few seconds.
Exactly. A short pause with a useful phrase sounds much more natural.
You know, I'm starting to notice something. Confidence isn't one big skill, it's actually made up of lots of small habits.
That's exactly right. Speaking clearly, listening carefully, asking questions, correcting mistakes calmly, taking short pauses. All of these little habits work together, and over time, they build real confidence.
I really like that idea because it means confidence isn't something magical, it's something we practice every day.
Absolutely. Let's quickly review what we've learned so far. If you forget a word, describe it. If you don't understand something, ask politely. If you make a mistake, correct it and continue. If you need time to think, use a thinking phrase. Simple habits, powerful results.
I wish I had learned these ideas years ago. I probably would have enjoyed speaking English much sooner.
And here's something I'd like everyone listening to remember. Every confident English speaker you admire today was once a beginner. They also felt nervous. They also forgot words. They also made mistakes. The difference is they kept going.
That's a great reminder. Confidence isn't built before you start speaking. Confidence grows every single time you choose to keep speaking.
Beautifully said. And now it's time for one of our favorite parts of the podcast. Let's slow things down, learn some useful vocabulary, and discover a few powerful words that will make your English sound even more natural. Let's begin our Word Explorer. Welcome back, everyone. We've shared a lot of ideas today. But before we finish, let's take a moment to review the most important lessons from this episode. Because confidence isn't something you learn in one day, it's something you build, one conversation at a time.
I couldn't agree more. And honestly, today's conversation changed the way I think about speaking English. I used to believe confidence meant speaking perfectly. Now I realize it's something completely different.
Exactly. Confidence isn't about speaking without mistakes. It's about continuing, even after you make one. Let's remember what we've learned today. If you feel nervous, slow down. If you forget a word, describe it. If you don't understand something, ask politely. If you make a mistake, correct it and keep going. Simple habits, but they make a huge difference.
I think my favorite lesson today was this. People aren't waiting for me to make a mistake. They're listening because they want to understand my idea. That one thought alone makes me feel much more relaxed.
Exactly. Most people care far more about your message than your grammar. They want to understand your ideas, your experiences, your opinions. So don't let fear stop you from speaking.
Can I ask one final question?
Of course.
What's the best way to become more confident? Is there one secret?
Actually, there isn't one secret. There are many small habits, and when you practice them consistently, they become confidence. Think of confidence like building a muscle. You don't become stronger after one workout. You become stronger because you keep showing up. Speaking English works the same way. Every conversation makes you a little better. Every mistake teaches you something new. Every new sentence makes speaking a little easier.
So, the goal isn't to avoid mistakes, the goal is to keep improving.
Exactly. And here's a simple challenge for everyone listening today. For the next 7 days, try to speak English every single day, even if it's only for 5 minutes. Talk to a friend, practice with a family member, speak to yourself in front of a mirror, or describe what you're doing while cooking, walking, or driving. The important thing isn't who you're talking to. The important thing is that you keep speaking.
I really like that challenge because 5 minutes doesn't sound difficult. But after 1 week, that's 35 minutes of practice. And after 1 month, you've spent hours improving your confidence.
Exactly. Small daily practice creates big results. Don't wait until your English becomes perfect before you speak. Speak now, improve as you go, and let confidence grow naturally.
And remember, every confident English speaker started exactly where you are today. They felt nervous, they forgot words, they made mistakes. The only difference is they didn't give up.
So, the next time you feel nervous, take a deep breath, smile, believe in yourself, and remember your voice deserves to be heard. Don't focus on speaking perfect English. Focus on sharing your ideas because your ideas matter. And every conversation brings you one step closer to becoming a confident English speaker.
We hope today's episode helped you feel a little more confident, a little more motivated, and a little more excited about speaking English. If it did, share this episode with a friend who's learning English too. Learning together is always more fun.
And if you enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to Enjoy English with Nora and Liam, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new English lesson. Every week, we'll bring you real conversations, useful vocabulary, practical speaking tips, and fun episodes designed to help you speak English naturally and confidently.
Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Keep practicing, keep smiling, keep believing in yourself, and most importantly, keep speaking English. We'll see you in the next episode. Take care and goodbye.